Hi everyone, this is Greg Viti with Real Estate Legends. I'm so excited today to have Joshua back on the show, Joshua Bandoch. He just wrote a book about persuasion, and obviously the persuasion is such an important topic when it comes to real estate or life in general. Let's face it, whatever you're trying to do or get. Joshua, thank you so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be back, thank you.
And so let's get into your background. Where did you grow up?
I'm from Baltimore.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
So
the land of Saint. What's the school that all the great people go to? Not I was gonna say St. John's, but that's an island. My buddy went there. All the great
Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, that's the one.
And they've got all the great lacrosse in the vaudeville bars. I happened to go down there once to see Muddy Waters play. So. You grew up in the city or the suburbs?
Just outside of the city. Baltimore's kind of funny. Like there's Baltimore County, which almost entirely surrounds the city. So anybody from the city or the county just says, I'm from Baltimore.
Right. That's kind of, we always laugh about when we're on vacation, people say they're from Chicago, and then you find out they're from Naperville, Aurora, or Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
So I get that. So you grew up with what type of a family, what was your family situation?
Blue collar.
Okay.
Dad worked grocery store, and mom did a combination of things, kind of sales, customer service type roles, and in fact even did side jobs. My dad did some like side jobs, a little bit here and there, odds and ends. My mom actually did side jobs cleaning houses.
Okay.
So
the old tough Polish, we're going to get this thing accomplished. Was your father Polish?
Yes.
And your mother too?
Not my mother, but my father, 100% Polish.
What's the other side?
Kind of a mix, English, German mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have brothers and sisters?
One sister, yeah.
And is she into academia like you were?
No, practical. She did early childhood education in college, and now she runs a daycare out of her house. So
you did very well in high school, I imagine?
Actually, I did just okay in high school. Grades were fine, but like just kind of.
What was your interests?
Tennis and debate. I actually started playing tennis right before high school, and the passion for it has just only grown. And did debate in high school, but I wouldn't say I was like especially academic. I don't think I could have been a lot better in high school if I just had an understanding of like what good academic performance requires.
Did you do a lot of reading at that time?
Not really, actually. So
it's wild to me because you've done so well in that, and we'll get to your academics. And you've written such a great book, very impressive. But so were your sister and you close, or
kind of average? Not
how far apart in age?
20 months.
Okay,
yeah.
So yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. So in high school, did you actually play sports or no?
Tennis, yeah, varsity tennis.
You did play varsity tennis, so you were aggressive. That's fantastic. And then when you were thinking of going to college, what was your thought pattern?
Well, this is kind of like, I was just kind of average. Not saying I'm better than average now, but high school just felt very average. Went to University of Maryland. I'm from Baltimore, as I said, and that was just, really didn't get any college counseling. It was just, I got in there. It was a good school. The price was right. In-state tuition, way better than going to a private school and paying triple or quadruple. So it was like, okay, I just kind of ended up there. There wasn't like a...
And what were you going to study?
Well, when I was 18, I knew that I was going to be a lawyer. So
you did know.
Like, yeah,
that's
which
good.
I'm not, but it's like, I knew that's what I'm doing for, since I was about 12 or so. I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. So I went.
Did you see Perry Mason's old show or something?
No, I was just, I liked to kind of argue or debate things.
Yeah, the debate really worked.
Was, people like, all right, you should be a lawyer. And that seemed right. So I went in thinking I was going to be a lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then what did you get your first degree in?
Well, degree was still in government and politics, political science. Stepped away from law, though, because I guess for me, law at the time just meant being in a courtroom because, like, what did I know? And I just kind of realized that wasn't like a good long-term fit for me. So kind of in college, stumbled kind of into the world of ideas and became interested in becoming a professor. So I sort of prepared my last couple of years in college to go to graduate school.
Did you do anything more with the debate after high school?
I actually did 4 more years of debate in
Wow.
college, a slightly different kind of debate, and still stayed on. So 8 years of debate in high school and college.
What's so interesting about that is I've interviewed a lot of people now, and when we were, I didn't know you. You just called me out of the blue to get on this, and you do public policy, and your answers were so like, well, not actually, and so by the book, so smart, and so like spot on. I remember when you left, I was like, wow, that was really interesting. I should have talked to him more. So now we have an opportunity.
Yeah.
So in college, were you really starting to read a lot more like the Washington Post, the New York Times, trying to figure out what the politicians are thinking?
Well, college is kind of where I started to hit more of an intellectual groove in a lot of ways. And one was that I got to college and was interested in government politics. So I thought, I should read the news. So I just became a voracious consumer of the news. I read the Washington Post every day, almost just every article on the website. So I was just consuming an insane amount of news, and it just helped me learn so much about the world.
And then your job with poverty research, how did that come about?
Well, if we rewind a little bit to my upbringing, poverty's personal for me because it's seared into my family's history. So my mom grew up dirt poor. My grandmother raised 5 kids by herself. And they were so poor, my grandmother literally had to count pennies. And every year my mom wondered if there were going to be presents on the Christmas tree, because most years there weren't. So that poverty scarred my mom and her siblings, and they still bear those scars.
When it's hard not to give that to your kids.
Yeah, so it's, I was blue collar upbringing, and that my mom's upbringing still shaped me in so many ways. And my grandmother lived with us for a long time, so she in part raised me. So it's personal, and I don't want preferably anybody else to suffer through that kind of poverty, or at least as few people as possible.
That's fantastic.
So
did you study poverty as part of the politics?
Not in college. It's sort of, I've sort of gotten there in a roundabout sort of way through, my time first in academia, and then eventually getting to public policy, and then realizing that poverty and opportunity policy, that's my passion.
Well, it's really a wonderful thing when someone finds their passion in something that excites you to get up in the morning and excites you to write a book like this, and also to change people's lives.
Yeah.
I actually, my mother had a lot of poverty too. Her father had divorced her mother, and really wasn't going to help out. And my grandmother had to step up, and she was fantastic. And one of the things I could see she got across to my mom was, don't have a scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
And I felt blessed for that, to be able to have that part. And it's not that my father made a lot of money to start, but he just had such a gregarious attitude about things, and he could make just staying home a lot of fun. And we learned how to. So, with your father, did he progress in his job? Did he get to be the guy who ran the place, or?
He worked he sort of managed a department.
Okay.
Moved up some, yes.
Was he good with I know you talk a lot about management skills in your book. Do you think your father was a pretty good manager?
I think he was fine. I guess his manager days were still when I was kind of young, so I guess I don't have a great sense of that.
Right.
I think, a fine manager, practical, just kind of making sure that everything got done. So I think from that standpoint,
So he's a hard worker. He showed up on time.
Yeah.
He didn't leave early.
Correct.
They could always depend on him.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
I think that's a good description.
So in college, were you thinking about going further with your education?
Yeah. So
right from the start? Or?
Well, yes. Initially, it was, I'm going to be a lawyer, and then by sophomore year, I kind of realized that wasn't my path, and then I got interested in becoming a professor. And so to do that, you have to go to graduate school. So I said I got myself ready. Spent 1 year in Germany after graduating college.
That's exciting.
Study abroad basically, and then applied and was accepted into graduate programs to do a PhD in political science. So that's
At an Ivy League school.
It was at Notre Dame, but
It was at Notre Dame. That's right. And then Brown was later.
Brown was later, yeah.
Okay, well,
So,
Notre Dame's pretty exciting.
it was a really great place to be, and it was a real honor to be there.
I'll bet.
So, yeah, I mean, look.
No, that's the kind of campus, and a lot of these campuses, they give you goosebumps.
That's
When
a
you
beautiful
get there,
place.
you're just like, whoa.
Yeah,
This has a lot of history. Wow, I get to do this.
Yeah, look,
so at that point, you were really focused.
I mean, then it was professor, do that. And I did my 6 years of PhD studies, got the PhD. As you mentioned, I was at Brown. I was there for 2 years. And eventually, kind of towards the end of my time at Brown, I was like, I don't know about this whole academia thing. And I had another postdoc at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So 2 years there. So I went.
Wow, another great campus.
And look, it's also a great school and a beautiful campus and a great city, by the way.
Great city, yeah, I love Madison.
And I got to Madison. First 15 months was head down, turning my dissertation into a book with a university press, academic book. So not of interest to your listeners. No.
Kind of boring.
Well, I mean,
It depends if you're niched.
if you're in that niche, fine.
Right.
If you're not, yeah, it's going to be boring. So I finished that and then kind of picked my head up after 15 months and I asked myself, like, what am I doing? And I knew the answer was not academia because academia is many things, some of which are really good. One thing is not as practical. And I was always interested in the practical application of anything that I learned. With my students, it wasn't, hey, are you going to remember this thing in this book? But rather, how do you apply these ideas? And
one of those kind of teachers.
How do you learn real skills in my classroom?
Right.
When I was in grad school, I taught my own class my last semester, and on the first paper, I was shocked and dismayed to learn that about a third of students didn't know what a thesis was. Like their paper had no argument at all, and I was like, you're like juniors and seniors going to be graduating from Notre Dame, which is a highly ranked school, and you don't know how to make an argument in what you're saying. So I was like, no, like we got to fix this. So it was that practical, like this is what I want my students to learn. Like this is what I want to use my knowledge for, and that's not really what academia celebrates.
Well, I love when a great teacher, it doesn't matter what they teach you, it could be tiddlywinks, and it's exciting, and you want to learn. I had a teacher at Ithaca College teaching education, and she taught all about Paulo Freire. I don't know if you know Paulo. Paulo got kicked out of a lot of countries because he was such a good educator that he would get people to read and write in 90 days. And part of it I read in your book, I thought about Paulo Freire.
Yeah.
And what he would do is he would make them realize that they've been oppressed for generations.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't read and the reason they don't, because they don't want you to, and he would get them into the classroom and he would start to explain it, and the energy and level was like this, and within 90 days they all could read and write.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And what this class taught me is I shouldn't be in school. I should be out figuring out.
Yeah.
Because at that point I wanted to be an announcer. I wanted to also write sports.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's not going to get it done for me. I felt like I had a higher calling, just like I know you had a higher calling. And the way the poverty really came through for you, it's so exciting that you were willing to study so hard and change your goal.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do.
I mean, we don't always know where life's going to take us. And so it's a little bit of just, being open to just what you experience and what resonates with you. And I thought it was academia, and I realized, no, practical. Well, practical what? And it's like, well, part of it's the book, which I know that we'll get to. And it's also like substantively the poverty and the opportunity stuff. Like that's what I care about. That's what gets me up. For me, that's what does it. For other people, could be, if you're in policy, other issues, right? Could be foreign policy, could be whatever. If you're in sales, right? Like, do you like what you're selling, right? It's like, what?
You have to believe in it.
Whatever your calling is, to the extent that you can find that and spend more time doing that is a really beautiful thing. And for me, like the thing that I care about most in life, just period, is empowering people to unleash their unique potential. And poverty is the antithesis of that. Like, if you're in poverty, the ability to unleash your potential is like
Right.
There's not much there.
Well,
because
you're at survival.
Totally, exactly.
And I was just in Iowa City this weekend, and they have a homeless problem there. And some of these homeless people, I would walk by them and just feel such empathy for them. So I think, okay, so they're sitting there now. Then what happens tonight? Then what happens tomorrow morning? And it was just sucking my energy. I was like, oh, God, thank you that I have energy and I can do some profound things to try to help others.
Absolutely.
You know, we're only here so long.
Totally.
And we can't whatever we accumulate we're not going to take with us. So we have to share.
100%.
And I can feel it through your book, just how much you're sharing on such a great level.
Thank you.
And so how long did you work on this book?
A decade.
I was going to say
it's a decade.
This isn't just like written in a few days. No.
For better or worse, no. It took a decade.
And I like that it has a very readable style.
Thank you.
You don't have to be some total literate academic to read this book and really get something of it. And the way you wrote it like a textbook so that you really give the summary and you give you a chance to think about it. And I like your little quotes up front. I feel like this is the right book at the right time. And so many people, in real estate, we're at the situation now in Chicago where it's such a seller's market that you have to try to convince people to even get a showing, let alone get them to take your offer.
Yes.
So there's a lot of persuasion and everything going on
100%.
and everything
100%.
all the time. So
like,
where were you when you started this? How did it go? How did it come down?
And I'll just maybe leave us hanging and we'll come back to.
Okay, good.
Is there anything in real estate that's not persuasion?
Yeah, I think that it's all persuasion.
Everything. And so let's come back to that, but I'll just kind of leave that hanging. So the book, where was I when I started this? I was somebody who had left academia and, again, practical. And there are a couple of things. One is just kind of like personally, it's seen so many people just like struggle to kind of find their voice. Part of it is that I have just noticed a gradual breakdown in communication in society, that like we're just awash in what I think is toxic polarization. There was a survey which I mentioned in the book. Americans were asked to describe like American politics, and one of the top responses was actually dumpster fire. So like that's not good. And there are so many wonderful ideas, whether it's in your real estate space or in your policy space or whatever, that stay on the shelf because people don't communicate them effectively. It's not the what, it's the how. And so to help people unleash their potential and really like share these ideas in a way that's effective, I wanted to kind of understand how that works. And in many ways, it's not what I expected going in. So I started this as an academic first, and then as somebody who's working in sales as a fundraiser, and then eventually as a speechwriter, somebody who's doing actually practical communications, and then as a researcher, and now as a public policy advocate. So lots of different angles to sort of look at this issue, persuasion.
What a wonderful way to do it. And you went out and got all this experience, and you lay it out so nicely. It is very interesting that it is kind of opposite. You think you're going to lead with logic.
Yeah.
But it's all emotion and feeling if you're going to have a shot.
So much of what I thought I knew about persuasion 10 years ago is either wrong or it's secondary. And so this has been a liberating process for me because I've learned to, rather than just simply judge things, observe and navigate reality. And we can get into what some of those challenging realities are. You alluded to the whole logic and feeling thing. And for me, part of it is just, you can either observe and navigate or ignore the realities of this thing up here, the human brain. And like, does ignoring the reality sound like a success strategy? Like, not
I love
really.
the way you talk
Not
about
really.
the defaults. Well, we default on negativity. It's a natural thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, but it's a human thing.
Yeah.
So are you going to stay there?
Yeah.
Or are you going to go to a higher power or a different way? Like,
Totally.
I've been struggling with that, but you know what? I know a lot of my friends never thought about it.
Yeah.
Where I thought everybody was like me and they lived in a Zen center and they hitchhiked across country and they took meditation and yoga classes. But no, that's not the truth. Most people haven't. Now, it's kind of gotten mainstream, thank God. But I still feel like the majority of the people on the earth, their thoughts are weakening them instead of strengthening them throughout the day. They are kind of lost and they don't have passion and purpose. And once they get that passion and purpose, it's amazing what can happen.
Yep.
And I feel like your book could really, people, if you read this book and you're at all in sales and you want to further yourself, I think that he really lays it out so wonderfully. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you. I mean, so I guess when I went into this, I thought, well, persuasion is all about logic. And that's what I was trained to think as an academic. So it's about, you're reading the text or you're running the data or whatever. And then if you just sit there long and hard enough and you think long and hard enough and you put together the right equations and the right spreadsheets and the right sentences and in the right order and the right paragraphs, that's all not just what logic is, but that's what persuasion is. And then you write things, you submit them for peer review, and then professors, right, they teach students to write and think this way, and then those students eventually teach their K through 12 students, certainly high school students, to think and write this way. And so this kind of permeates society, this like logic first approach to persuasion. And then I think we also think that persuasion is just about like winning, and it's about convincing people to think like us. So kind of my training reinforced all that as an academic, and that's not at all what persuasion is. Not at all. Nope.
Isn't that funny? When you come out, just your assumption up front, you're so strong with it, and you're like, oh, I was really, it's backwards. Yeah. It's really opposite of that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just think of if you're trying to seduce someone and you're trying to, and you show up to the date and you say, I've been thinking about this, and here's the 6 reasons why you really should be, dating me, and here's what I can bring to the table, and blah, 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 blah. The person will be like,
exactly, right?
Oh.
Imagine, right, you find someone on a dating app and you have a couple of nice phone calls, and then that first date, you're like, you have this like little sort of fact sheet for them. It's like reasons why you should date me and consider marrying me. Like that would
here's my resume.
That would be completely insane, right? Here's my bank account balance, my salary. Here are my characteristics. Here's my personality type. Do we match up? Like that would be completely insane.
Right.
And like
you turned me off.
Exactly. Like so it's. I mean, some of the things that I've understood what persuasion isn't, and I think if we understand what it's not, we can figure out what it is. So one of the things that I think we think persuasion is that it's about winning. It's about winning an argument.
Or being the richest.
And so if I win against you, what does that make you?
A loser.
And then do you want to work with me?
No.
No. And
win-win.
Totally. So it's when I just try to win though, and you lose, then that transaction many times doesn't happen, or if it does, it happens reluctantly, and then there's not a second one. If you win against your clients, maybe one time they work with you, and then that's it.
Joe and I had a friend who he would love to argue, and he would love to get the facts. And if you were disagreeing with him about something, he would get like heated and mad, and then he'd show up the next day and he'd have all the facts. And I remember thinking, God, that's so twisted. Like, and then he died really young. It was a heart attack, and I think that probably had something to do with it, that he didn't know how to assimilate and, live and let live in the end. Like, I don't want everybody to have to agree with me for me to like them. God, what a tough world that would be. I mean, my dad and I never agreed on one thing with politics, and yet I loved him as much as anybody on the earth.
And so there's 2 parts to this, right? One is this notion that like persuasion is only about logic and data and reason, and all the neuroscience and all the psychology show us that that's actually not how our brains work, that our brains are wired to feel first and then reason. Sometimes it's feel and reason, sometimes it's feel, then reason, sometimes it's feel, and we never get to reasoning. And we also know that people who have brain damage from like a traumatic injury and they lack the ability to emote or to feel, their reasoning is severely impaired. So emotions actually make our reasoning better. So the logic of first approach to persuasion is actually illogical.
Right, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. None of the neuroscience supports it.
It's a turnoff.
None of the psychology supports it. I'm lucky enough to have Pierre Salve as one of the endorsers of my book, and he is one of the founders of emotional intelligence as a field. He's a professor at Yale University. So like the stuff I have in here is, like
It's time tested.
it's good and it's accurate. And so it's like part of this is, and the other misconception of persuasion that I'll highlight is that it's about convincing people to think like us. The Latin root of the word convince is actually, it means to vanquish or to conquer. And conquest is barbaric, it's not persuasive. And when someone approaches you, either to try to make you a loser, to conquer you, or to beat you over the head with their logic, like has that ever once in your entire life persuaded you to do anything?
Maybe punch them.
That's it,
about
right?
it, yeah.
And it's like, if I had some paper, like I do this thing when I'm doing workshops where I'll write on a piece of paper, my logic, and then I'll ask you what it says. You'll say my logic, and I throw it at you. And then I say, did it stick? And it's like, nope. But it's like, no, like, it never does. And yet, part of what I kind of learned in the book is like, if we just flip our perspective, and if we ask the question, well, how would we feel if someone did that to us? That if someone else beats us over the head with their logic and tries to conquer us and make us feel like a loser, if you just think about, well, what if I were on the receiving end of those things? Whoa, hang on a second, wait a minute. That doesn't work against me, so why would I think it's going to work against somebody else?
It's never going to work.
It's not.
I feel like it's all chemistry. It's all chemical. Like what's
Totally.
that song? It's you can just feel it in the air. Like,
There's a Bush song, the chemical.
but when you're in
the chemicals between us or something like that.
but you're in a good spirit,
Yeah.
and you're feeling excited.
Totally.
People can feel it off you. You're walking around doldrum, and you got a dark cloud over your head. People feel it, and they don't have to say anything. You don't have to even open your mouth. You've already screwed up the sale.
I mean, look, part of the trouble is that this sort of like hyper quote unquote logical approach to persuasion, all that sort of stuff, or just like the transactional approach to trying to get what you want, is that you're dealing with human beings. You're not dealing with robots. You're not dealing even with cyborgs. You're not dealing with computers. You're dealing with human beings and relations in everything that you do, whether it's in real estate or in policy or in literally everything you do in life. It's relational. And when you feel a connection to somebody, when that person understands you, when they can appeal to things that interest you, even if it doesn't interest them, when you like that person, all those things are relational, and you discount those things at your own risk.
When they're great listeners,
Yeah.
and they really sincerely care,
Totally.
and they ask the right questions,
Totally.
a magic happens. My parents had a few friends, and anytime I would be around them, they would corner me. And they would ask me questions and have such sincerity to care about it that I remember saying to my father, Mr. Hyman's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Why? Because every time I leave him, I feel like I can conquer the world. He gives me this confidence and strength. And there was like 8 or 10 of their friends were that way for me. And they were like inspirational.
Yeah.
And they do it by the way they are, not by trying to convince you.
And so maybe this is a good segue. Part 1 of the book is called Adopt the Persuader's Mindset. And the persuader's mindset is simple, but really hard. It's about them, not you.
Right.
And the trouble is that we're wired to think about ourselves. The data show, data can be helpful. The data show that people talk about themselves 60% of the time. And on social media, that number increases to 80%. And the surprise for me was that those numbers are that low. So we are wired to think about and talk about ourselves, and that is a survival mechanism, right? Like if you don't think about you, who's going to? The trouble is that it impedes our ability to thrive, because
In every conversation,
if you approach every conversation, what's in it for me, and you only talk about you, how many people do you think are going to work with you? Not many, and they will only for as long as they see that it's in their interest, which is not going to be that long. If you instead you make it about them, and you understand who they are and what they care about, and then you build
how
that
to
connection.
really help them.
Totally.
On a special level. So because you're really listening and hear them, then a real relationship happens.
Totally. And as you alluded to, you do that first and foremost by listening, which is, it's kind of like a lost art. And one of the people I talked to get some insights for this book. He's a great communications expert, and he really helped me understand just a super simple thing, which is no one teaches us how to listen. It's like, yeah, that's true. People don't teach us how to listen. And it's so something you have to practice because we're mostly wired to talk first. And if you can flip that and listen, then the connection you form with somebody, because like just think of just the opposite, which is somebody you care about. You come to them with a problem, and a couple of minutes you're talking to them, and then they say, hang on, what'd you say?
Right.
Oh my God.
Or they're thinking about something else, or they're thinking about what they're going to say to make sure that they're on topic, and really they lose the whole magic of what's really supposed to happen in the conversation.
And then think if instead they're listening, and then they can demonstrate some understanding, and then there's that connection, and then through this conversation, they start to see some areas where your interests and their interests overlap authentically. And then eventually, as you feel that connection, it's like, hey, I have some ideas. These are some things that you're interested in. I think we could work with that. And there is always overlap. You take someone who's, say, politically really conservative and somebody who's really progressive. Do they disagree about everything?
No, we have to agree there. We
It's
probably
impossible.
want to eat
Correct.
good food. We want to exercise.
Totally.
We would like a lot of positive things to happen in our community, and we want good stores, and we want good highways. And there's
Absolutely.
a million things.
100%.
But yet, if they're hard-headed and that's it, you're done. You don't really have a chance to, Socrates and Plato.
Yeah.
If you would have been listening to them on the side, you'd think these guys were arguing with each other. No, through dialectic comes the magic.
That's how we learn.
That's how we learn and grow.
That's right.
Right. And
Totally.
I'm so glad that you took the time to do this, because it is funny how it's all kind of opposite of what we think.
That's it's both. This book is at one level, it's all deeply counterintuitive, and at another level, it's so deeply intuitive. So we are wired to think about ourselves. Yes. Okay. So our intuition is just to kind of talk about things from our perspective. Okay. But also, we also know intuitively, how do you feel if somebody does that with you? Not good. So it's like, okay, just sort of navigating this wiring in a way that actually like kind of makes it make sense. You don't have to exactly rewire yourself, but rather like kind of focus on different parts of your wiring. So the best me first strategy is to put them first, so that when I understand you, who you are, what you care about, we form an authentic connection because I've listened to you. I've identified those areas where we can share action, because for me, persuasion, it's shared action. You do that, and then you start to work with somebody, you build trust, and then that next shared action is easier, and it feels better, and then it accumulates, it snowballs, right? That's how you repeatedly get what you want. You build those authentic relationships. That happens through listening. It's just you have to know that it's also in your interest.
But you have to be genuine. You have to be authentic.
100%.
If you really are genuinely, authentically a total narcissist jerk, you're probably going to have a hard time persuading many people, unless they're like underneath you and you're telling them what to do, but that's not persuading them, because they're probably hating you the whole time.
The authenticity is foundational, and when you're inauthentic, people know.
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe not at first, but people's intuitions are pretty good about just something's off. I don't know about that. And then once that little seed of doubt gets planted, and if you are inauthentic, you're going to water it.
Being in real estate for so long, and I've been in a lot of different situations and offices, and I remember early in my career, the top producer, a couple of them would come over to me, hey, did you see I sold this, and this? I said, you trying to make me feel good, or are you just, why you keep telling me this?
Yeah.
Well, I already saw that you're doing well. I'm proud of you. Maybe, bring me in on something if you need help. But I think that's...
And just imagine if they had brought you in on something, just think of how good you would feel about working with them, bringing them business too, and forming that collaborative partnership, as opposed to this sort of adversarial, hey, look what I did. Isn't it more than what you did? Aren't I better than you? Ha, ha, ha.
Right. Well, I've always felt like it was so hard to first get into this business, to really make it stick, that anytime I saw someone who's new to it, I wanted to ask them a few good questions and find out what their mindset is.
Yeah.
And then if they were open to it, give them like 3 or 4 things that I knew when I was starting my career, these things were building blocks that really made it go. And I can see them ease up.
Yeah.
And then I see a lot of them implement it.
Yeah.
See, that's one of the wonderful things. That's where you know you're persuading someone, because they're implementing some of your ideas
Absolutely.
that you're giving to them.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you're giving them freely and not always looking at what's in it for me. That's a whole big part of this.
Absolutely.
Right.
Put them first, because so there are mercenary and missionary reasons. The missionary reason is that it's the right thing to do. That's the right way to treat people. Like, do you like it when somebody approaches you only based on what they want and they use you and then they discard you? Of course not. So that's the missionary reason, and the mercenary reason is that it's also the best way to get what you want. So like there are all kinds of reasons to put them first, and the authenticity when you do that and build that relationship. That's not a one-time getting what you want. That's a repeatedly, time after time after time, more and more people getting what you want.
So have you, I imagine that your wife probably read this and she's using it on you all the time. And I'm sure you're using all these good things on the kids, because I know that once we start feeling a bit evolved and like we really have our stuff together, then you negotiate with your children and you realize you don't know anything.
Look, I mean, from the minute that I get my 3-year-old out of bed, we're negotiating until he goes to sleep. And I mean, every interaction requires persuasion. This right here, if you aren't persuaded to continue our conversation, you could end it, right? You'd be like, all right, well, we gotta go. We're at time. All right, see you.
Okay, good job, Josh.
So everything requires persuasion. Just to get somebody to continue to interact with you requires persuasion. To respond to you the next time that you call, text, email, or send a carrier pigeon, whatever. Everything requires persuasion. And for me, persuasion is the difference between having a good idea and having others embrace it. So it's like, okay,
you can have all the great ideas in the world, but if you can't get your point across or anything, you're stuck.
And, used casually, and I know it was casual, and there's some people don't see it so casual. You said, well, do you use this on, say, your wife? I know you're kind of joking, and some people have asked me, well, isn't this just a guidebook to manipulation? And the answer is no, because it's about shared action. So that's what persuasion is for me. It's something that we voluntarily do with others, and it's action because it's about getting things done. And as long as it's authentic and you're putting them first for the right reasons and you're truly trying to understand them, that's not manipulation.
No, that's empathy.
Totally.
That's really trying to care.
100%.
That's going deeper in.
100%.
So what I try to do, whenever I'm going on an appointment, I try to remind myself and center myself and say, you're never too busy to be kind. You're never too busy to make this fun.
Yeah.
And make it about them. And that was before I read your book, because it always seemed obvious to me that who's the customer here?
So every time I have to call customer service, I use a couple of the sort of like fun tactics in this book. Mostly, I am like as nice as I could possibly be to all the customer service agents. And so 2 funny stories that are related. I had to call Verizon last week about something, and I was like, again, over the top nice lady, because most of these customer service agents,
they get
calls from people and they get brutalized. And, like this, poor lady gets all these calls all day long. And like as if it's her fault that service is out.
Right.
As if it's her fault that there's a billing problem.
It took so long. It's her fault too.
As if it's her fault that something hasn't arrived yet. And so they just unload. And so knowing that, they're so relieved when somebody's actually nice to them. And I really value their help because they're going to solve a problem for me. Thank you. It's a problem and you're going to solve it. Cool. So I just say, how can I be as nice as possible? And then a magical thing happens. There's this first thing I'm calling about this. Oh, like, do you need anything else? And then I'll just, what else? What else can you do for me? And then they're like, oh. So twice in the last week, I call Verizon and
got a new phone.
we get to the end. And I called a couple months ago about something else, and I said, hey, like any offers for a new phone? They said, no, not yet. So I had an iPhone 13, an old phone, 4 years old. So talked to a lady, and she says, let me just give me a couple minutes to look into your account. This is after 20 minutes of being overly pleasant to her. And so let me just look at your account. So she said, give me a couple minutes. Okay, comes back. She said, hey, actually, good news. you can trade in your iPhone 13 for a brand new iPhone 17. I'm like, okay, what's the catch? She's like, no catch. You just trade it in. I'm like, she's like, and we're going to cover the rest of the sort of charge you have on your device. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I had to call them. There was a little small thing 2 days later. So I talked to somebody else again, overly nice to them, trying to be as funny and as likable as possible. She said, oh, do you want me to look for any like things in your account? So then she found that my wife also was eligible for an upgrade. So I surprised my wife with a new iPhone 17. They didn't have to look for those. And this was at no charge. She got to keep her iPhone 15. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but we have an iPhone 15 sitting there now. I didn't ask for it. She offered to look for it. She went way out of her way to do all these things because I was nice, likable, treated her with respect.
It's so fun when you really do work and it works right. I remember I drove through a whiteout with this friend of mine to Michigan for this concert. And he was the whole time bragging about how great seats we had and blah, blah, blah. And we finally get to the window and he was so mean to her. And the way he talked to her and the way his body language was. And she's like, no, that's not going to work. And he swore at her. And I said, oh, stop. And I look and I go, please, if you were me and you drove with this guy all the way from Michigan, from Chicago to Michigan in a whiteout, what would you do? And she looks at him, and she looks at me, and she goes, buddy, she says to him, you're luckier with him. And she just gives us some seats, and we just go and don't think about it.
Yeah.
They were 6th row center. This is
and if you hadn't stepped in and been
we weren't going to get into the concert.
Overly nice, done, all done, right?
But you know what? It was more, yes, I was being nice, but I tried to get to that special self.
Totally.
It's like, wait, get a smile on your face.
100%.
Be genuine. Be gentle.
100%.
Be nice. Plead your case.
Exactly.
There's a certain point where, I don't care if it's with a policeman, a judge, a girlfriend, whoever it is, you're going to have to plead your case.
Totally.
And this book will definitely help you plead your case.
Great. So it's, what are some of the other things that are like counterintuitive, but also a little bit intuitive, hopefully? Okay, talk about feelings, yes. Then this begs the question, well, what kinds of feelings? So we are wired to be negative. Again, this is that wiring thing, right? We have something called negativity bias wired into our brains. There's even this thing called the amygdala hijack that happens where you're off like the negative emotional cliff. So we are wired that way. You recognize that, okay, true. And is negativity, is it persuasive? And whenever I do workshops, I say, well,
It can be.
maybe.
Well, like the fear.
Can be short
No,
term.
but I don't think you being negative to someone else is really going to be very helpful.
Well,
It can motivate them to get the hell away from you.
just quick intuitive. Who are some of the most, and this isn't partisan, who are some of the most persuasive Americans of the 20th century?
Well, Barack Obama was pretty persuasive, and Bill
21st, but
Bill
fair,
Clinton
sure.
was
Clinton,
pretty,
sure.
Yeah.
Give me one or two more.
Steve Jobs, very, very persuasive.
Good.
Bill Gates was very persuasive in his day.
Would you object if I added Martin Luther King Jr.,
No.
Ronald Reagan, and JFK to that list?
No, I think that Martin Luther King Jr. was the best.
So 7 great there. Okay, let's just quickly look at them. I'll just kind of go chronologically. JFK, ask not. Positive. Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream.
Nonviolence.
Ronald Reagan, shining city. Bill Clinton, I feel your pain. God, Steve Jobs' presentations were phenomenal. I have a couple of paragraphs on Jobs in the book. Phenomenal.
And you said how he would work on them for months.
Oh my God, for months.
It's like he was just talking. He already knew the lines.
Bill Gates, I don't think of him as like an amazing speaker. He has a positive vision for the world.
He sure has helped.
Certainly what he's doing now, super positive vision for the world. Barack Obama, hope and change, right? Separate all of your partisan, priors out. Positivity is persuasive. What people no one ever says Malcolm X. He was persuasive, right? Negativity there. So no one ever says Barry Goldwater or Walter Mondale. They never say that. It's all positive people. So it's like, well, then you have to be for something. That's what it means to be positive, to be for something. What are you for? This isn't just a sort of grand political thing when you're with clients, like being for what exactly? What is their vision for a property, a home, whatever, and then understand that and then figure out what they're for and what they want and need. Can this property meet those needs or not? What are they looking for? Like, meet those needs and then bring that vision to them.
Yeah, the negativity thing, it's really, I feel like our egos kind of have us miserable if we don't, and until you're conscious of it,
Yeah.
You're kind of bitchy, kind of complaining. You kind of say shitty things to people you don't mean to. Oh, yeah. Or you're almost like that person on Saturday Night Live. Someone says something, and I say, oh, yeah, but then you think about that.
Yeah, but, right? That's at the yeah, but.
And so when you realize that you aren't what you have, you aren't what you do, and you aren't what other people think of you, you're really whole and perfect like you were created. You can get back to that energy, that kind of wipes out a lot of the negativity, I think. But you've got to be conscious of it. Most people aren't conscious that we tend to be negative as human beings.
Yes. I think there are a couple things you have to do to break down the negativity. The biggest thing is to figure out what you're for. What are you for? So we talk about the opportunity stuff. Like, I'm not only against poverty, I'm for opportunity. I'm for people unleashing their potential. We could go on down the list.
There's nothing better than seeing someone take it and run with it and
Exactly.
just shine and help others
Exactly.
on a master level. I love that when that happens.
I am for those things, and I look for examples of those things. So, like, you have to be for something. And then there are just a lot of sort of tactical things you can do just to start to step back a little bit from the negativity. And then again, flip that script too. So when someone unleashes a wave of negativity either at you or just around you, does that ever persuade you?
It doesn't. And I learned that early, like on listing appointments. Someone says something really negative, you say, I'm so glad you asked that question, and I wanted to give you our company policy on it, where it gives you a chance to not say, you just think about it, and then what's the next word out of your mouth to try to bring it to a better conclusion than what they were saying.
I think you actually can, you better do this, push that one step further. Invite their feelings, because then you know. So ask them this simple question, and it's a phenomenally loaded question if you let it be. How do you feel about, you're showing them a property, walk through 10, 15 minutes. How do you feel about this place? If you ask them, what do you think about this place? But how do they feel about it? Yeah. It just gets you that quick intuitive, they're gonna either say, well, this is great, or there's gonna be, or no. Or there's going to be somewhere in the middle, right? I like these couple of things, but I didn't like this thing. So then you're understanding what their hesitations, what their barriers are, and just asking them even how they feel, what's positive, what's negative, and then understanding if those negatives can be removed as barriers or if they are insurmountable. If they're like, look, the place is beautiful, but it is way out of our price range. Sorry. Or, but it's just, this is a deal breaker. Okay, it's a deal breaker. If it's a, but, I'm not sure about this. You might be able to alleviate that concern. So invite the feelings, and then when there are negative feelings, you don't discount them. You don't say, yeah, but you're wrong. You understand their negative feelings. You deal with them head on.
And no property's perfect. No situation's perfect. And so I don't try to play devil's advocate. Yeah. But I definitely look at the property close if I know that they have an interest, so that I can give them a rundown of what they're up against.
Totally.
Because most people don't really realize, they don't look at buildings the same way,
You want to understand, as their advocate, what they're up against with the property and with the seller, buyer, whichever side they're on.
After the close.
And then you want to understand what they internally are up against. Because if it's like, it's too expensive. It's like, you don't want them to feel too pressed, and then at some point they just, I can't do this.
He's pushing us
exactly.
to a higher price range.
He just wants us to buy a bigger house because then he's going to make more money. It's like, maybe, but also that's something that could lose them as clients in the future and stop them from referring you to other people. Okay, but if they feel like maybe you're trying to press them beyond their price range, they might just they might just ghost you. They might go to somebody else, right? You might lose them as a client even for this transaction.
It could
so
happen.
it's being sensitive to those things as opposed to ignoring those things.
Yes. And so in figuring out this book, did it take you a long time to figure out what's going in the first chapter compared to the ninth, and how chronologically, because it does really read very chronological, and it does have feeling and emotion, but it's very logical.
Yes, and it did take some time to get the structure just right. I always knew that chapter 1, which is to put them first, that had to be first. Because if you get that, right?
Yeah, if you get that wrong.
If you get that right or wrong, if you get it wrong, you're done. If you get it right, though, then a lot of errors are going to be just kind of washed away because you made it about them. So people forgive you for so much when you are authentically interested in them, because that's
unbelievable.
It's like
magic that can
because
happen.
then like you say oopsie, but like they like you and they trust you and there's an authentic relationship. So the oopsie isn't so bad, as opposed to if they dislike you and you make it all about you, the oopsie is all done here, right? In the words of my son, all done.
Yeah.
So that was always first, but then other things kind of had to move around. Some of the tactical stuff was a little bit earlier. I realized, no, that kind of needs to come later. And some of it was more understanding what a chapter is about. So like the chapter on vision, that was the hardest one to crystallize for me, because it was, okay, but really why is vision important? This is chapter 2. And the answer is that
the future.
Vision animates action. It's like, what's your vision for your life? And then if you're a leader of a team, a company, whatever, what's your vision for this group of people? You could be leader of your church group or whatever, doesn't matter. What is your vision? And that's what animates action. And then part of it was like really understand, okay, well, yes, storytelling, okay, what kinds of stories, and kind of getting into that. So I would say like the order was like roughly there, things moved around, but then it was really like crystallizing the ideas and sort of distilling everything in a way that hopefully is compelling to the reader.
So let's go back a little bit and pull back from the book a minute. So you wrote a lot of speeches for a lot of different people.
Hundreds.
So how did you get this job or jobs that you had? And like, give us some examples of some people that you wrote speeches for, and ones you really could say, wow, that was a moving speech. I can't believe I wrote it.
Well, so the example that I go into in the book, I had the honor to write speeches for the Air Force Secretary. And one of the biggest charges that I had was to write a speech for a Medal of Honor ceremony. And so I go into this in chapter 6. This is a sort of application of everything that has kind of come to that point in the book. And the Air Force doesn't get many Medal of Honor speeches because airmen are mostly in the air, right? So they're not like on the ground like the Marines are, for example. So it was an Air Force moment because it's in part unusual, and it was a chance to put the Air Force kind of on a par with the other services.
So did his plane go down and he...
Well, he actually... he went in on a helicopter to save somebody else in Afghanistan who had went down, who was essentially like kind of he
Pulled
was
him out.
He was sort of like missing in action, but they had to go in and get him. So firefight, and what he did that was so heroic was, okay, went in, and then they thought all the guys were dead, and then there's still one guy up there like shooting, saving, doing all these remarkable things. It was this guy, John Chapman, and they eventually had like proof that he did this stuff. So, well, he deserves a Medal of Honor. So I was like, well, how do we honor him? And so this is in the chapter on storytelling, because then it was a story about Chapman and who he was and his character. But so, okay, well, that's fine. That can like kind of write itself. He did X, Y, and Z, and that's good because. Okay. So how did I kind of step back and try to make this an important speech? How you frame things really matters.
Yes.
And you could just be like, all right, Air Force Secretary, I'm here to talk about John Chapman. He was a courageous man. He did these things. He deserved the Medal of Honor. Ta-da. Okay.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's not compelling at all.
No.
And so as I learned about Sergeant Chapman and what he did, I kept thinking about the Star-Spangled Banner. And here we sing the Star Spangled Banner as like it's an exclamation point. That's like, you know, now it's blanking on my mind, sorry, but like the land of the free and the home of the brave. Like at baseball games, the land of the free and the home of the brave. There's just one problem with that. Francis Scott Key didn't write it with an exclamation point. He wrote it with a question mark. Because when he was writing during the War of 1812, it was not clear if America was going to remain the home of the free and the land of the brave. And our freedom is something that we always have to fight for, that we always have to protect, because that we live in a free country is not a given. The majority of people in the world don't. And so like our little weird experiment in freedom is highly unusual in the course of human history. And Francis Scott Key appreciated that. And one thing we need to continue to protect our freedom is brave men like John Chapman. So we decided to frame the speech in the Star Spangled Banner.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, well, you know, we don't think about it very much. But again, not an exclamation point, a question mark. And so then sort of framing it in this and then going into Chapman's story and then bringing out some of the really virtuous things that he did, trying to appeal to some of the audience's emotions through his courage, and even just sort of going back a little bit into his story before he ended up losing his life in battle, and just sort of like doing those things that really made the audience feel not just the power of Sergeant Chapman's actions, but also how that connects to the American idea and the American experiment, and then close the speech by explaining how, you know, it's through actions of people like John Chapman that we remain the land of the free and the home of the brave. So it's like this story of John Chapman couched inside the story of America. And that's just a totally different speech with so many layers that, I mean, the secretary just completely just demolished the delivery. It was phenomenal. And it was just like pin drop, boom. You know, I mean, it was for her a total mic drop delivery, which was phenomenal. And it was kind of framing that. So that would be an example. We can go into more examples if you like, but that's kind of the biggest one that I have here.
No, I love it. I love it. So what a great job, though, to really have to verbalize for someone else and make it powerful.
And look, I mean, as a speechwriter, you want to be careful. That was the secretary's speech, and my job was to help her craft it and help her deliver it. So that's what I was doing behind the scenes.
So did you coach her on her inflection and everything else?
She mostly practiced that herself.
Okay.
It was lots of back and forth, the framing, getting just all the sentences, the pauses, everything right. And then she just crushed the delivery.
And so you're a speaker as well.
True story, yes.
And so you get up in front of crowds often?
On a somewhat regular basis, yes.
And what are the type, other than persuasion, what do you speak on?
Well, so
Poverty?
Persuasion is one of them. I have a TEDx talk, in fact,
Nice.
on parts of the book. And then, yeah, poverty and opportunity stuff. I mean, other policy issues too. The poverty opportunity stuff that's what I'm most passionate about.
Well, we definitely need to go further with your poverty and try to figure out ways to get the affordable housing to make more sense.
Yeah.
I do see that a lot of builders are starting to build again in Chicago, but it's not on the level that we need to really take care of this housing struggle that we're in right now.
And so how we frame our housing policy matters. So I do some work on housing policy, and for me, my North Star is housing abundance, because I think the best way to make housing more affordable is to have more housing
That we need.
of all shapes and sizes to meet diverse needs. Maybe some people just want to live in an English basement. Some people might want a 5-bedroom home, you know, and it's not based on only what you can afford. That's a big part of it. It's also like what you need. And is there housing to meet those diverse needs? So the more housing, the better. So it's like, that's me being for something, which is for housing abundance and being for more diverse types of housing.
I do notice that some of the policies and the way, I'm sure everybody comes with really good intentions and they really mean well.
Yeah.
But by the time the policy gets to where it is, it's terrible. And it actually does the opposite of what it's supposed to do.
This is, you know.
I went to the Southside Builders the other day to listen to them talk about the Chicago block. And as I'm listening, thinking, okay, so if we go with their you could get the land for not that expensive, but you can go get land on your own not that expensive. And if you're going with them, all the roadblocks and all the prevailing wage, okay, it doesn't pencil out anymore.
Yep.
So much of the policy just doesn't work at all. And so if you want to get a loan from the government
Yep.
to build housing, it's going to be unaffordable, not affordable housing, because all the restrictions they put
Yep.
on it. And I know you know because you're a policymaker.
Yep.
I've been living it with my developers and builders for so long. And it's like, you've got some of these developers that can build for really inexpensive per square foot compared to everybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're not going to touch it because
It doesn't pencil out.
it doesn't pencil out. It doesn't
Totally.
make any sense.
Totally. And so then there's two parts here, right? One is just the simple, in this case, like data analysis. Does it pencil out? No. Okay. So then if you want to go to policymakers and kind of explain the problems, it's like, well, what are you for? I am for housing affordability through housing abundance. Okay. And then you have to kind of, okay, can like you agree on that? Okay. Do you share some goals? Yeah, like we want more housing affordability, which I do think is different from affordable housing. So affordable housing is like, say, a subsidized unit. Housing affordability is open to everybody, whether you're at the upper end, lower end, or somewhere in the middle of the income scale.
I feel like that's where affordable gets lost.
Yeah.
Because it gets lost in everybody thinking it's public housing.
That's right.
We're talking about just affordable that your rent for a 3-bedroom isn't $3,800 a month.
100%. That's why.
God.
That's why I flip it housing affordability, because you have mom, dad, 2 kids, and they're making okay money. I want their housing to be more affordable too. It's not only for somebody who's at the bottom end of the income scale, because like you said, if they're renting a 3-bedroom for $3,800 and they're of modest means, that
How
demolishes.
about the taxing?
That demolishes their budget.
Just think of all of these people who've owned their houses for 30, 40 years. They started out, their taxes were about $300, $500, and now they're like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and they can't even afford their own house. So here we've got all the public schools on the tax records. We're trying to change that. 2028, vote to take the schools off the tax records, and then we can figure out a different way to do it. That's just one way I'm looking at it. But I do want to meet with you again and try to figure out ways that we can help with this affordability problem.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people that have the ears to listen and have the means to help. So maybe we can put the two together. Okay, so Josh, I think we're going to have to pull this together. Hopefully we're going to do a workshop together soon, and we can get some reels out, get people excited about this book as we are.
Yeah.
We know we're going to help some people. So everyone, this is Greg Viti signing off from Real Estate Legends. Thank you so much, Josh, for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everyone.